Guess what? This is our last slideshow. This is the last slideshow for understanding ecosystems. Can you believe it? Oh my gosh. I feel like it's taken us a year and a half. All right, so we did talk a little bit about this slide in the last video, but I'm going to touch upon it a little bit more now. So we're talking about the balance of nature, and all living things grow and develop and change over time, right? So we know this. This is called the cycle of life, and animals are found in every environment and habitat on Earth. I feel like my nose does not like these PowerPoints because I feel like I'm going to sneeze, and I feel like I sneeze in every video. So just bear with me. The balance of nature also talks about how animals affect the environment in which they live through daily activities like digging holes, making nests, collecting food, hiding under rocks, and using landscape to escape from predators. But the environment affects the animals' activities too. So not only are the animals changing their own environment, but the environment kind of forces them to change a little bit too. And we talked about this about how changes in the seasons spark animals to build nests, hibernate, migrate, and even lay eggs. And as a result, animals play an important role in keeping the balance of nature. So I think in the last video, I touched upon this slide a little bit, and I had said that frequently in the animal kingdom, you see babies being born in the spring, right? So you've had a really long, hard, drawn out winter. It's cold, it's damp, it's gross. When spring happens, that's a really great time to have have a baby, whether you're laying an egg or you're having a live like a bear cub, because that gives your offspring or your child, I guess you could say, the longest possible time to kind of grow and develop before that harsh cold winter sets in, right? So if an animal like if a baby bear is born in the spring, like if they're born right now in March, they have March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October before it starts getting super, super cold, right? So that's a good like 8 months that these babies have to learn and grow and um, basically just survive. It's a better chance of survival when you're born in the spring. Obviously, as humans, we've found ways around that. We have babies born at all points in the year because we have a lot more luxuries to help those babies than animals do. So the life cycle of an animal shows different phases that occur in an animal's life. It starts with the birth and continues until it becomes an adult. And the last phase is when the animal has babies of its own, starting a new generation and continuing the cycle of life. So your life cycle starts, if you are an animal that lays eggs, it starts when you're popped out as an egg. And then you turn into a little baby chick, you might turn into an owlet and then an adult, and then the adult starts the life cycle over by having more babies. So it's the same thing as adults. You start out as a baby, you grow into like a toddler, a child, a teenager, an adult. And then if you choose to have your own children, then you're starting that whole life cycle over. And they call this like a generation. So your grandparents, um, they went through their whole life cycle. They had your parents went through their whole life cycle. They had you, and you are still in the middle of your life cycle. You're not quite at, teenager, adult. So you're kind of like halfway through your life cycle. That doesn't mean that you're not going to live a very long time. It just means that the life cycle you're halfway through. There are many different types of animals. The changes that an animal goes through at each phase in its life cycle can be extremely different depending on its species, right? So if you think about like a caterpillar and how it turns into a butterfly, this is like a crazy transformation process that we don't always get full access to, right? Like we can't see what's really going on inside until the outer layer starts to become clear, and then the butterfly breaks out and goes on its merry way. For us as humans, the change that we go through in our phase, each phase of life in our life cycle is very obvious, right? You start out as a little baby, you can't walk, you can't talk, and then, you know, within a year or so, you're walking, you're talking, you're learning new things, and you can see a human go from a baby to a fully grown adult. It takes a long time, but it's very easy to see the transition. It's very easy to, recognize a baby versus a child versus a teenager or a young adult, and then like an older adult, right? It's easy to recognize the changes that humans go through. It's not always so easy to recognize the changes that other animals go through just because we don't see it so often, right? Like we have no idea what's going on in here. It's not until the butterflies at this stage that we can see, oh, okay, well, it was a caterpillar, now it's a butterfly. No idea how that happened in here, but it happened. So, humans are animals too. All animals, including us, depend on the balance of nature for survival. Taking care of the earth will ensure that it lasts for many generations to come. So, we don't necessarily, personally, I guess we don't really like rely on a plant um, as our sole purpose of like, if this plant dies, we die. Um, But if our world was to lose all of the vegetation, we would lose our oxygen. So, it's sometimes it's hard to see the bigger picture. Like you might go and you might chop down one tree and you think, oh, well, there's hundreds of millions and thousands more. Right. But, you know, chopping down one tree at a time, it adds up. So we just want to make sure that we do our best to keep the earth in tip top shape so that we can continue to live our lives um, you know, for as long as we would like. So everything does have a purpose. Plants are called producers because they produce or make their own food. We talked about this. On the other hand, animals are called consumers because they need to consume or eat plants and animals to get their food or their energy. So this is just like a little bit of a review. Herbivores get their energy from plants and or plant foods that they eat. And when a carnivore eats the animal, they get the energy from that animal. Energy passing from one living thing to another is called a food chain, right? So we have the sun. The sun helps give the plant energy to grow and change. The rabbit would eat the plant, and it basically takes the energy that was in the plant and that energy and sugar and things get coursed through the rabbit. And then I guess this is a fox. I mean, it kind of looks like a dog, but I'm going to assume it's like a fox. The fox would eat the rabbit. And then all of the energy that, like the fox's body will break down the rabbits and create energy that way. So food chains work with how the energy from the sun is passed on. It goes from the sun to the plant and to the herbivore to the carnivore. The sun provides the food for the trees. The tree produces leaves, fruits, and seeds. The giraffe eats the leaves on the tree, and then the tiger eats the giraffe. So it's all, kind of sad to think about sometimes, but the, that's just how life is. So many types of nutrients and vitamins are found in food. When living things die, some nutrients are left behind on their bodies. So scavengers like vultures, wolves, crows, raccoons, seagulls, and hyenas get their nutrients from dead animals while at the same time cleaning up the earth. So when scavengers are done feeding on dead animals, there are pieces of decaying matter left over. Um, if you've ever been like driving down the road and you're near like a wooded area, you see some vultures circling overhead. That's probably means that there's a dead animal somewhere, like maybe a rabbit got hit by a car or something. So those vultures are basically signaling other vultures, hey, found some food. It's in this location. Let's go. And then when they're done feeding on the dead animal, there's still pieces left over. They can't really eat like the bones and stuff. So The decomposers will break down those pieces of dead plants and animals and return the nutrients back to the soil. So if there's like a piece of tissue that, like a muscular tissue or something that the vultures left behind, maybe because they were full, um, the decomposers like earthworms, slugs, snails, and ants will break down that decaying matter and the waste product. So that also means too, like, you know, animals go to the bathroom in the woods, and these little decomposers will break down what's left behind and reuse that as energy for themselves. And also, they help to take the nutrients out of what's left behind and put it into the soil. Makes a good fertilizer. So that's where we're actually going to end. The next couple of slides are just vocabulary slides. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these slides and put them in a document for you so that you have the vocabulary words, and then we'll do a little quiz with those vocabulary words. But for right now, this is going to be the end of our last ecosystem slide and or set of slides, and then we'll move on. So you can go ahead and answer the questions on the Google form, and if you have any questions about the questions, just let me know.